Hey guys, so we're gonna keep building on the LF1. So I'm gonna just start looking at some of the elements that we have left off. So for instance, this wall here. Let's start working on this wall. So I'm gonna pick this wall and this surface here, and I'm gonna invert selection and then hide selection. So isolate basically the two elements. And what I'm gonna do is just um, I could just trim this element and get rid of all that, but you know what I'm gonna do is just split it and then hide that in some layer, and we're gonna just talk about layers as well. Select objects to split this surface, right click, element. So now we have this element. So let's build a layer that is that you can just call something like just in case, or extras, right? So we're gonna just put this element here and we're gonna hide that. We can put it all the way down, right? So we know that that element is sitting there, and then I'm going to show everything else. So I'm showing everything, and let's do an offset of this surface. So offset surface. Oops, not that element, it's this one. Okay, and we're going to say negative 0.24. We got this element not in the right layer, of course. We should have done it in the surface layer. And now we can just loft. I'm gonna go in and just do it on the other way around as well. So just standard modeling, lofting some of these surfaces together just to get all the details clean and closed. So everything seems in order. Perfect. Right, so now I'm gonna start talking about the floor. If you look at the sections, there's somehow of a slope, but for this exercise we're gonna just consider that there's two main floor areas. So I'm gonna create a layer that I'm gonna call floor 01, right? And this guy will be maybe some dark gray, right? So let's work on this layer. Going to top view, I'm gonna hide the background, and I'm gonna just do a rectangle for now, right? So I'm shift pressing alt, sorry, pressing just alt, and I'm gonna just draw a rectangle, like. Let's go ahead also and do planar surface. So you'll see that this line comes out. So that means that this is a surface. In this case, this gray is very close to the gray of the screen. So I would just actually make it slightly darker, something like that. So you can see that we actually do have our project sitting on a plane, right? And this is not the case of the building. The building actually has a different level in this area here. And also there's maybe a slope, but it's very difficult to see from the images. So we're just gonna focus on the idea that there's two main levels here, right? There's a zero and then an underground that it's maybe 3 steps below. So let's do that cutout in our plan. Let's bring back the image, right? Go into wireframe mode so we can actually see something. Right. So here, actually it would be useful for this layer to be a little bit more colorful, right? So something like blue would be good. Yeah, that looks better. and we can actually hide our surfaces that are kind of getting in the way, right? So I'm going to draw the outline of this shape, basically. This element here, we have this, the ramp, and all the curvature that goes around. But what I'm interested is that this cutout matches the geometry, let's say the volumes, right? So it would be useful for us to have these building lines on, right? Because we know now where does our surfaces uh, appear. This is the line that represents the surface, right? So we know, for instance, that we have a line here. I'm going to just pass by and then trim them, right? I can also do the line here. I'm going to just do this one. I'm going to do this one separate to see, because I want to just do one of them and then copy this one like that, right? So basically I'm just roughing out the shape. I will have to trim a bit later, but I'm drawing all the different sections. In this case, this one I want it to be a continuous one, so I'm using a curve here, putting a few control points there. You can always move them later as well. And here I'm just going to leave this point. I could try to snap to intersection, and that would be actually very good, right? So I have my curve, my curve here. Let's just see those control points. This one could be moved a little bit, this one could be moved a little bit as well. That's looking good. So at this point I could hide this, and you see that this is looking pretty good. We have this point connected here. We can trim this excess like that. We have this going on well. What I'm going to do now is just pick this curve and press Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So I have a duplicate of that curve, and I'm going to pass that curve to this layer, the roof layer. So you see that now I should have in that place the original curve and a curve in the floor. So I could just get rid of that. And we had a layer for brown somehow, but this probably shouldn't be there. But anyway, so let's trim this excess, right? And we can also get rid of all these layers that are just the window and all that stuff. So the only thing that we're interested in this element, and I'm going to press J, enter to join, right? So we should have one complete element, right? So that's looking good. So let's go ahead and split the surface, the background surface, that is the full rectangle. Remember to just do the planar surface and not just a rectangle. And let's split the rectangle with this curve. So you can see that now we can pick the two pieces of geometry, and we can make a new layer called floor 2 for a darker blue. I'm going to change that element to that layer. So this element, we're going to move it vertical. So I pressed M, enter, V, enter, just to move minus 0.51, right? So we basically build a floor that is slightly lower. So now we can bring back our surfaces and see that this is why we actually did this surface much lower, right? Because we will be trimming it with this. right? So that's kind of the reference, and at the same time I see that this cutout is fitting perfectly at this surface. That's really good. And over there we have just at the vertex on the surface, it kind of changed the direction, right? So that's pretty good. So let's go ahead and just draw some of the surfaces. Let's say first let's draw all the boundary, and then let's start doing the ramps and all the other stuff, right? So what I'm gonna do is just do a profile, like a line straight down. And because I do have this curve, and I could actually, the easiest way of actually doing it, I would say, would be sweep. So I'm gonna use this curve as a rail, and then the cross section would be this line. So if we try to do that, we'll see that you'll get all the edge condition all around it in a very quick way. Right? So that's a very good tool. What I want to do now is just, if we look at the plan, there's a few ramps here, right? So there's this ramp. I'm gonna do this ramp first. Basically, what I want to do is just do a line that represents this ramp, like here, and then I need to somehow make this line project till the end here. So what I'm gonna do is just draw this line, so that line is there, and I'm gonna extend, select the boundary object, right click, select the line, and you can see that we develop this line, which I'm gonna move the control point down by pressing enter, enter, and I could move it down minus 0.51, again same distance, so it's basically working like the ramp. So I can extrude this curve, but in this case we don't want to extrude it up. We want to just click on direction to actually say in which direction to do it. So we're going to suggest that this is the direction to extrude. Okay. If I press Alt, I could just do it manually, and you can see that I'm doing this ramp to the other side, and like so. So I just want to pass a little bit in order to trim. Use this as a, sorry, I need to trim using this element as a cutting object, right click, and then I can see that I have this excess on this other side, and I see that I'm trimming the ramp the way I want it. I can get rid of that line now. The other thing I want to do is just go into wireframe and draw this line here, so I could actually do a loft just to close that. So you can see that we have that ramp there. This will be pretty good. What else do we have to do here? Basically, we look at the plan. There's another ramp here that should be pretty simple. There's a stair here, quick. But I'm interested in these stairs here. So let's do that. The first thing I want to do is just right. What we're gonna do is just draw these profiles and draw these lines of boundary. So there, in this case, well, it should get till the end of the volume, right? So in this case, it should be this line, right? So we're gonna make a copy of that line by pressing Ctrl C and Ctrl V and switching it to our layer. So now if we see that we have a blue line, so that would be the boundary of that stair, right? So what I'm interested here is just that this line, I could also do another copy of this one. Basically what I need to do is just get this curve from here till here, all let's say the profile of the stairs, and I want to do a sweep to just build the stairs, right? So I could just draw it if you want. I mean, and that would be very simple. We could try to do that actually. Um, so you could say intersection, and there we go. So in this case, this curve, let's check in the perspective that is actually yeah, it's the profile of the stair, right? So what we could do now is, just being in a front view, we can draw the profile of that stair. Let's draw the profile of the stair. So it's just, let's say something like 0.3 and then 0.17. So basically this will be the profile of the stair. You can do something more fancy if you want, but for me this is fine. So what we have here is just the profile of the stair, and I joined it, right? I press J, enter. So you can see it from the top view that I'm going to just move it somewhere here. Now I can go back to my perspective view, and you can see that our stair is there, but it needs to be rotated because that's not the direction in which. So rotate, pick base point, pick reference point, and then rotate, right? So we have the profile, and it's in 90 degrees with the rail, right? And then we will trim it with this line, so that should be fine. Let's do the sweeping. So surface, sweep one rail, select the rail, that's fine. Select the cross section, click, and you see that we have a very quick stair. Let's start detailing some of this building, right? So I'm gonna trim the excess here. There we go. If we would like to, I could put these elements, let's say if I need them, in that layer extras. So we can see that we're cleaning a little bit the model, but we're still having a layer that is hidden with the material. So if I just draw a line perpendicular and here, and I could just go again in and maybe even draw the whole thing to just do a planar surface, and in that way I could actually close that detailing there. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So from here, perpendicular. You see that we have a little bit of a gap here, but that gap should be the place where we are having the thickness of this building that we don't have yet, but we will when we work on the facade and everything. If we need to change this, we can always untrim this surface and then retrim it again, right? So that's looking pretty good. We're just missing some few elements here. Let's see. So we have this one here, this ramp. I mean, I think it's pretty clear how to do this ramp. Really, like, at this point, I'm not just gonna model everything, but it seems that the concept, at least, comes across of how to model these elements, right? So in this case, I'm going to use a different technique. I'm going to use this as a cutting object, right? Then this is a cutting object, and then I'm going to draw this other line. So what I'm doing now is a ramp that it's specified by two curves, this one and this one. But this one I'm going to move vertically minus 0.51, and this one I could just left. So again, very simple. Let's bring our surfaces in. We do not have the wall here. This is probably a very low wall. We'll probably build it later. I'm gonna just check on the images and to see that detail. But that's kind of how it should be. The projection of this volume is a cutout, and we have this kind of low surface. So that's starting to look pretty good. I'm gonna also come in and just do some of the columns. So I could just do a new layer and say columns. I'm gonna put that in this kind of light blue layer and work here. So I'm gonna just, I mean, columns usually you could work with blocks, and I think in fact we've seen blocks, but I'm gonna use this rectangle shape, and you could eyeball it, or you could just use a distance. What about 0.25 and 0.3, something like that. Let's try it. And 0.35, 0.25. That looks more like it. Right. So I'm gonna copy this column a few times. We could work with blocks, but in this case, because the geometry, these columns are just fitted so precisely to the geometry, I'm not gonna do that. So let's see what we have. We have these three columns here flying, right? So when I pick them, what I want to do is extrude curve, and you see that it will go one way. So I could say both sides, and I could do 10 meters. And I have these three columns, right? And basically what I want to do is just trim them with the surface. So I'm going to just say cutting objects, this surface, objects to cut, this column, right? If I bring the surface in, you'll see that now I want to just do this surface and these columns. So I'm going to invert selection and hide just to work with those elements, and trim using this surface as the cutting object. Right click, so objects to cut that. So you see that we trim the columns. In this case, we were using the top surface. We could do it again with a, I didn't remember that we have a bottom surface. I guess we do. So again, maybe we could trim these columns again. I'm going to select them, invert, hide, trim again, using this as a cutting object, and that's it. If I show the elements now, you'll see that the columns are sitting perfectly inside the surface. So the next tutorial, this is where we're gonna leave it now. And the next tutorial, we're gonna come in and detail these volumes here, so we could always bring back everything that we've done so far. And we're gonna start detailing this facade, and maybe that one will be one of the last ones. We could keep on going, but in a way, we've seen the tools required to just go through the model. We're probably gonna talk about interior walls and maybe some of the sections, and then a lot of tutorials about how to produce drawings about this. That could be very useful. So yeah, I hope you like this.